girls, welcome back to the Asterisk Podcast. I'm your host, April Biondolillo, and today on the show we have the one, the only Erica Ludwig, which is so fun. You'll get to hear throughout this episode that we have literally known each other since we were 3 years old. So we've been besties since the beginning. So this is going to be really fun, just a really great conversation with a dear friend. But in case you haven't met her, you haven't heard much about her, we've had some blogs she's written for us in the past. She was just on our Fort Worth panel for our first stop of Cherish tour, which was incredible. If you missed the episode, go back a few episodes back and you'll get to hear more of her story. But we are soloing in on Erica today. So if you haven't met her, Erica has a heart for people, relationships, and the art of entertainment. She has the privilege of working in these passions every day in her dream job of working with the national Broadway tours that come to her hometown of Fort Worth, Texas. When she's not seeing a Broadway show, Erica enjoys going to baseball games, spending time outside, and hanging out with her friends. Currently single, Erica is thankful for having an amazing community of friends and mentors who support her as she builds her dream life and continues to pursue the way of Jesus. Erica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This will be so fun. It's just like, I tell people, it feels like I'm FaceTiming people. It's the best. And then everyone else gets to listen in. So we're going to just dive right on into your story, which begins really right in the third grade. I mean, before that, but this is where life took a turn and you actually lost your mom to breast cancer in the third grade. So how did losing your mom when you were so young shape the way you saw God and the world?
Yeah. So, I guess like a little bit more backstory on me. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents had one of those like once in a million kind of love stories, and it is truly through the faithfulness of the Lord. And they really did pursue Jesus and a relationship with the Lord and with each other, and having that be the center of their home. And so that foundation was already laid. That's how I ended up at Bethesda. That's how you and I met.
Yes.
When I was in first grade, my mom and my dad sat me and my brother down, and they told us that she had been diagnosed with cancer. You know, I mean, when you're so young, you don't know, like, there's stages and you don't know any of that. And so they told us that she had cancer, and you know, that they were going to fight it, that we were going to fight it, and you know, we cried together. And my mom fought it for 2 years, and you know, with the help of a lot of you know, doctors and treatments, and for our family, the help of community to get us through that. But she crossed over into heaven 2 weeks before my 9th birthday, right before Mother's Day in May of 2003. So yeah, we were in the third grade, and I still remember it like so vividly. You know, I had, just for those that are listening, I had been staying with April and with her family a lot throughout that time. And so, you know, I remember like the last time that I was going over to your house, you know, I remember kind of like asking my dad, you know, like something about like letting me know when mom gets better. Because they had sat us down to also like let us know, like the doctors said that it was like fatal. Like, and obviously they didn't do that lightly. They waited to do that. They did tell us when the doctor said it wasn't going to get any better. And so I remember leaving. I think we were going to church that night, and maybe it was the next day. I don't remember the timeline, but I just remember being in class, and I looked at the like at the classroom, like the little door window that was there. I remember looking out that window, turning at just the right time, and like I saw your mom and I saw my uncle, my mom's younger brother, and they came and got me out of class, and then they got my brother out of class. And I just, for some reason, I kind of just knew what was about to happen. But, you know, you obviously, even as a child, you don't know really how to like brace yourself for that. And so they took us down into Pastor Dez's office, who was our senior pastor at the time. And I had never been in there before. They took us into Dez's office, and I remember it was your mom that told us that, you know, our mom was in a better place. And just like, trying to hold back tears as she was telling us this. And because, how do you look at kids that you love like your own and tell them they don't have their mom here anymore? And so they told us that and, asked if we, what we needed, what we wanted. And, my brother's 2 years older than me, and he would stay with his best friend at the time. And so we both just kind of said, I wanted you and he wanted Caleb. And so they got y'all out of class, and you just like sat there with us and cried with us. And, cause you were praying that my mom would be healed too. So I think that at the time it didn't really, it's not that it didn't hit me. It did, obviously, but it was like, I think for a very long time, for the rest of my adolescence, like obviously it had affected me, but I just was so like, keep going, keep pushing. Like, this is what your mom would have wanted. Like, that foundation of faith was so strong that I think we were in church that Sunday. And I think that, I remember a lot of people telling me like, you're just so positive. Like, I just would never imagine that you've been through what you've been through, because you are so like, so bubbly and so positive and just so joyful. And I, to me, I was like, I can't imagine any other way. I don't know what you mean. Like, why I would be so angry at the world. That just never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that it's obviously shifted a lot of the way that I do things. It's changed everything. It's changed my entire life. I think it's more so now as an adult that I'm kind of like, I can look back and go, okay, yeah, I didn't have a normal childhood. Like, I had a great childhood. I had wonderful friends and family and a lot of great memories from my childhood, but it still wasn't normal. It's not normal to be a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old and like your mom is losing all of her hair. To be at a funeral for your mom when you're 9 years old. So it's just, I think that like I have to remind myself of that often. Because I've just done so well, thankfully, through the grace of God. But yeah, it's shifted everything. I think I'm still figuring out how it's really changed my perspective. It makes me more appreciative of my relationships and my community, for sure.
It's so crazy just even hearing you like highlight back to those days, because it's wild to think of third graders. Like, we had to learn right then and there, how to process through really heavy things. And even as a third grader, like, how am I going to show up for my friend? Like, I can't even imagine looking back. Like, what do you understand, fully? You get glimpses of things where I even look back of, I had never been in Pastor Dez's office. And I remember vividly, because Bethesda was, just for anyone that doesn't know, it's a private school attached to a church. And so that's where we both were. And I was in the gym playing a game and I was getting picked up early. And I had this idea of like, this is the best day ever. Like, I get to leave school and class. Like, come on. And then you just get hit with news that, totally shifts everything in what you see. And it's scary walking in, even as a friend, in those moments, because you want to be strong and you don't know how the other person's going to be. And so it's just crazy to think that at such a young age, that was your story. Like, I love that you're hitting it. That is not normal. That's not everyone's story, and that's challenging to navigate. And I think today, probably unpacking more than what you could at that time, and getting to reflect back and see like, oh, okay, maybe this is why the way I see things or act this way or whatever it is. But just those key memories of, okay, how am I going to and I think for anyone that maybe is listening that maybe hard things to that degree haven't taken place to them, but to people around them, a lot of the times it's like, man, how do I show up? Like, what do I do? And obviously I've not always been perfect at this in these situations, but I had to learn at a young age. Like, I was learning alongside with you in a different way of what does that look like? And walking with people, it's not just, okay, here's this quick fix. Like, it's going to be a journey, and it's going to have ebbs and flows. And what do you think, looking back, like, this is a bonus question for you. What do you think you needed in that time? What do you think you didn't need? Like, what advice would you give to someone that is trying to comfort a friend or family member who is grieving? Like, what do you think was something that was helpful or something you wish people knew?
That's a great question. I think, because I experienced that kind of grief so early, I think that it really did, obviously I wouldn't, if I could choose it, I wouldn't have chosen it. But I think that
Right.
it was a gift in a way because it really made me prepared to show up for people when they were grieving. I mean, I had a, one of my really good friends that was in our class, and, he was a former classmate. He lost his mom 2 years after I did. And so,
Yeah.
to be there at the visitation, and even to reconnect with him, a number of years ago, we both had that in common.
Yeah.
I've met so many people in my line of work, in, just anywhere, that have gone through that or have gone through a loss like that. I was actually at a funeral, a couple of weeks ago for a friend of mine. She had lost her mom, and she's in her 40s. So she's a few years older than me. And I remember like her and her sister both were like, you know what it's like. And I, of course I was there for them, but I was like, I don't though. I mean,
Yeah.
I know the grief. I know the grief of this person that I really love, that I wish was here for this moment in my life, is not here. I know what grief feels like. I don't know what it's like to lose your mom as an adult. I only know to lose your mom as a child.
Wow.
And neither one is worse or better than the other one.
Yeah.
They both suck.
Yeah.
They just do. They are just different. They're just,
that makes sense.
I think they're both equally painful, because when you're a child, it's like you literally are growing up without your parent. There are moments that you wish they could be there for, that they're just not.
Yeah.
As you become an adult and you get to know your surviving parent or the rest of your family or whoever, as an adult, and have a relationship with them, like for me with my dad, I'm having to ask a lot of questions about my mom, that just her personality, because so many people have told me, oh my gosh, you're so much like your mom. And they'll say like in her temperament or whatever. But I've asked, I've asked her siblings, I've asked your mom, I've asked so many people that were close to her and that knew her, to be specific with me, because it's like, I don't know how I'm with her. So I think, if there was something looking back that I didn't need, or I did need, really, it's hard because I was so young. So I don't remember what people did or didn't say, or did or didn't do. I do remember, obviously I remember people showing up. I remember, our community and people that were friends with, both of my parents showing up with meals, as we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also checking on us, I think I'm really blessed and fortunate that, you said it in the introduction, like I love relationships and I love community. I have been really fortunate to keep a lot of those people close to me. Even when I was in Tulsa, I would come home and I would still try to see friends or family friends, mentors. It's really, I think the key thing is to continue to show up, to continue to check on them, to, just be there for them. Because the grief will come up. It will. It also sometimes is just nice to have somebody there, even if it's just as a distraction. Like, when my grandmother passed, one of my best friends, Allie, she just showed up on her day off with her toddler and brought me crumble cookies. And, I think it's things like that. Or, when I'm having a moment, like I remember you and Allie and I being at youth camp, and I was like breaking down about my mom, but I didn't know that's what was happening. And so you guys were both like, you can cry. It's okay.
We might have been a little bit more forceful than that, but it's so kind for you to.
Just a little bit. But I needed that though, because I think it was just, it's not like you guys were trying to get me to cry. It was just like, I just kept everything in so much. Like I went into that, like, you know, eldest daughter, like easygoing kid mode. And I just was like, no, like it's fine. I didn't want to feel the feelings, but I also just didn't want to burden other people.
Yeah.
And you need friends and people to hold you up that are telling you it's okay to just fall apart because we're going to hold you. So I think that would be my number one piece of advice for anyone that is walking with somebody that's grieving, or if you're grieving, it's to not be afraid to let people in and let people help you.
That's good.
And to just show up, even if they don't ask you to.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good reminder of that. It's not about having like this perfect verbiage or the right words. It's just being present, sometimes just sitting in that space, you know, and the reminder. I think my dad has always said this, like when he's been at funerals before, it's like the people will show up in the beginning, but we as like partakers of it, like we are not or as close to that individual, like we can kind of move on from that grief a lot quicker. And so just the reminder of they're still going to be in that grieving place. Like, don't forget, just because there's not a funeral or coming together of me, like still remember to check in, which is so beautiful. Cause I think in two things I would say with growing up with you and knowing you still today, I think it created in you an intentionality that's you have always sought out people and community and checked in on others. And I think that's a beautiful and rare thing, which is also kind of like a challenge for the church and Christian community of the American church has become so much of we come, we sit, we partake, we either go because we really like the speaker or we really like the worship. But the commands in the Bible when it comes to the church is like, you're supposed to like carry each other's burdens. You're supposed to lay down each other, like your lives for each other, you know, like it's going to get messy. It's going to get personal. And we've lost that touch. And I think because of what you've had to go through, the Lord has really shaped and kind of like made that your purpose of seeing people and walking with people. And, you know, I think that's been kind of like your greatest frustration in life in one end. And then it's also the very like blessing I think the Lord has purposed you for. And so it is cool to look back and see, man, this was really hard and this was really awful to go through, but I can see how the Lord is using that to be a blessing for other people, or how the pain in my life could be the platform to reach others. Was there ever like for you a point where you said you never really got to the point of being angry at God, but was there any like shift in your relationship with God? Did it make you look at things differently, or do you think it just helped you grow more? What was your dynamic like?
I think that it helped me grow more.
Yeah.
If I was to just give a straight answer, I do think that it helped me grow more. I mean, I had to grow up very early. I think my mom's family my mom comes from a really small family. My grandmother immigrated from Costa Rica in the 50s. So the majority of her family is still in Costa Rica. My mom's dad actually left when my grandmother got saved. Yeah. So it's like my mom's family has always been really, really close. And so, you know, her two brothers and her sister leaned into me and my brother even more. And like we were, you know, because you were there, we were always doing stuff with them. And I think that I think to have that close relationship and that intentionality, I think, just they also are very strong in their faith. And so I think that it just grew.
Yeah.
It just grew my faith, I would say. It definitely made me just, I don't know, like, I guess I say that of like, they did a good job of making sure my brother and I still had a childhood, and my dad and my stepmom, like so many people did, but I think it just kind of grew my faith. It almost like lit a fire under me of, I know what it's like to have something, you know, so precious being taken away from me. Right. And so I think it just my natural response is not, or at least at the time, it was not to get angry.
Right.
I just was like, that's not going to change anything.
Right.
What do I have?
Right.
Who do I have? And, I did, struggle with achieving and feeling like I had to earn, affection or approval. I'm sure that was probably like a subconscious thing from that,
Yeah.
but I never ever really got angry about it, I think.
I think that's a really cool thing too. I think when I reflect back is just how your family was so surrounded. Like I remember you constantly going with Aunt Carlene. Like we would get to hang out with Aunt Carlene. Like just the fact that I can remember vivid memories of being surrounded by your family, or just how you hit at that community piece. Like it speaks to both your parents. And again, like I didn't really get to know your mom either, just from the memories of other people. But it sounds like you two shared a very similar heartbeat for relationship and community. And so really y'all were set up for, I don't want to say success because that sounds kind of weird, but for lack of better words, like you guys already had this community set. And I think a lot of the times people are going through life alone and they don't have their people. And it's like when the waves hit you, the storm comes, it's 2 a.m. Like, who are you calling? Who are those people? And you had options. Like, it wasn't like just limited, or I don't know, like there were people to call upon. And so I think that's something for even myself as like I'm growing older, like the importance of community, importance of relationship, realizing that a lot of the commands in the Bible, they come with the responsibility of there has to be other people. Like if you're supposed to bear each other's burdens, that means there's got to be other people. Like it's not just my burdens. If we're supposed to confess our sins to one another, that means there's got to be other people. If we're called to lay down our lives for each other, you know what I mean? Like, and I think in some ways, COVID 2020, that created a lot of isolation. And I see that a lot today. And so now is a time when, like I said, people are going to church, they're going in, they're going out, there's no conversation, there's no relationship. So it's really cool to know this is the positive side of it, of life's going to hit you. Like, and that's not the most exciting thing to hear, but something's going to come up, something's going to happen. And your mom gave you a gift of community. Like you were birthed into community, and now that's a strong pillar in, I would say, your belief system of out, not just like because of faith, but knowing the importance of having my people. And you've been so awesome. We'll get into this a little bit more. Like even as a single person, that can feel very isolating, and yet you have made way for, hey, I don't care if you're married, I don't care if you've got kids, like I'm gonna come over and meet you where you're at and be in those things. But I think it's also important for people to know, like, you may not always want to connect with them with their kid around or in their playroom. Like it's also nice to have people meet you where you're at. And so I think that community aspect is really huge in everything. I look back at that, I'm like, wow, like your mom, your dad, but also the Lord really just set you up to understand, hey, this is why community is so important.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like I'm realizing it. It's funny how I didn't realize this until we were having this conversation. I think that would
Certainly
also
processing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Therapy with Erica and April. I
Amazing.
think that it also would explain a lot as to, I think too, I went to school at Bethesda all 13 years. So I was used to being around a lot of the same kids from my entire education. And at church, I went to Bethesda Church. So I think that, that also, in addition to the community aspect, though, I think that I'm just pre-wired that way because of my mom, like you said, but that would explain a lot as to why I hate surface level conversations.
Yeah.
Not that they have their time and place. I totally understand. You aren't going to meet somebody and just be like, here's my
Let me deliver. Yeah.
let me just trauma dump on you. No, like I totally get it. I think though, in the church though,
yeah.
I have just always really, really struggled with, specifically in the church, and with people our age, surface level conversations.
Yeah.
I went through a period where I was at another church from Bethesda for like about 9 months, and everybody there was so wonderful, but I would find myself getting frustrated. And I even felt this way in college too, where I was like, I felt like I noticed a lot of people coming and leaving, and they were doing stuff together, they were doing life together, but I was like, yeah, but are you like, do you really know what this
Yeah.
person is walking through? Like, do you know what their burdens are? Are you serving in the church?
Yeah.
Do you know how their faith walk is? Like,
Yeah.
not just like saying they're a Christian and saying, like what you love about Christian culture, but like, and so I think, I remember my friend Emily, whenever I was in my senior year of college, and I was in head leadership. And so I got placed on a floor with a lot of freshmen and some transfers. And she was one of them. She was a transfer. And there was one of the freshmen on the wing. She was getting frustrated because, I was the senior. I lived at the end of the hall. Like, we were so busy. So I was like coming and going, doing whatever. And I had already gotten to know Emily pretty well. Her and her roommate, Mallory, they lived down at my, I just really connected to them right away. And I remember this other girl, she was complaining, I guess, once when I was there, I had just left or something. And she was like, I feel like Erica's never here. And like, she seems really cool, but like, I never really have the time to talk to her or whatever. And Emily, I'm still friends with Emily to this day. She looked at her and she goes, look, she's like, Erica is not going to have a surface level conversation with you. Like, if she's going to spend time with you, she wants to get to know you, and really like dive deep with you. So she's like, you got to have patience for that.
Yeah.
And be a deeper well if you want to talk to her.
It's good though.
I've always remembered that though. Again, surface level getting to know you conversations, they have their place.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I love intentionality. I love community. I love that I can say I have friends from college. I have friends that I've made through work. And I have friends that I've known since I was 3 years old, like you, or friends from elementary school into high school. I'm very, very fortunate to have that. It also makes me good at my job because I spend 4-ish hours with a cast member coming in on a National Broadway tour, and I'm taking them to do their press interviews, and I just try to find a way to connect with them and make them feel less alone. So it helps a lot for sure.
Yeah, just how you're wired. It's so awesome. So you've described at points in your life, you talked about this a lot at panel, which was really good. Just different points in your life feeling like you didn't fully belong, whether in your family, friend groups, or faith circles. How have you wrestled with identity and belonging, and what truths have anchored you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've wrestled with identity, I think, in a way that is similar to your testimony. I'm, for those who obviously you can see me, but you can't fully see me. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm very petite. I have a wonderful face of makeup on right now, but I've always had a baby face. So I've just always been like cute. I've always just been the cute girl. I was a little chubby growing up, and had some baby fat. And I think, I was surrounded. I had friends that were just beautiful. I have a stepsister who was just beautiful, blonde hair, hazel eyes. Like, she was, she still is very petite, but she was like athletic and skinny and, like all, just to me, perfect.
Right.
What a guy would want. And so I think I felt alone and wrestled with my identity a lot in like, I'm a romantic at heart. I still am. And I've never had a serious boyfriend. And I have felt like, I remember in college, I really struggled with it because, you go to college and you think, okay, well, I'm going to meet my husband. This is great. Like, it'll be fine. It'll all be fine. Happily ever after, whatever. Spoiler, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And but I learned so much about myself in that process in my college years. I think that I really did wrestle with identity in just feeling, and I even still do a little bit. It's been a journey for sure. I think just really going, okay, but my identity is not in my relationship status. And I even have to tell myself that of when I do get into a relationship, that my identity is not in the fact that I'm single and I'm self-sufficient and I'm independent and I like my independence. I think I've wrestled with it in that way. I've wrestled with it in my career. I love my job. It is my dream job. I didn't even know that it existed. And then when I found it, I was like, oh, this is why I have all these passions and interests and giftings that the Lord gave me. And so I think that I've wrestled with it in that way. And yeah, I felt alone in, friend circles. I felt alone in my family at times. I feel like we all have, at different moments. But yeah, I think it's just at the end of the day, I have to continually ask myself, like, and it's a process. Like there are moments where I get real anxious about random things, like stupid things, seemingly small things. And I have to really come back to center and go, okay, but who does God say you are? Who does, even saying an affirmation over myself as I'm driving to work, like I am a child of God. If I'm going into a social situation where maybe I'm meeting some new people that are my age, I'm trying to go, say those things of like, I am kind, like I am a child of God, I am loved, I'm all these things. So I think it's just, having those pillars in place of scripture, of, who God says you are. And if you really struggle with beating yourself up like I do, then trying to position it in a way that's like, okay, if I heard April talking to herself this way, if I heard, one of my youth kids that I, have mentored talking to themselves this way, what would I say? Because that's how your friends see you. That's how your mentors see you. That's how the Lord sees you. So I think that's usually what I try to do.
I think that's really powerful. Just getting out of yourself, and if you're talking to someone else, how are you talking to that individual? Why is it any different for yourself? That's good. Exactly. So you've worked in ministry and the entertainment world. Mm-hmm. How has God used both spaces to teach you about purpose and calling? She's like, they just keep coming.
Yeah. So I worked, I guess, like for vocation and not just volunteer.
Yeah.
I worked in ministry. It was right when I moved back to the DFW area. Right. So it was a few months. It was a few months, I think. Obviously, like I've been involved in ministry. I've, gone on missions trips and done other stuff. I've, supported Cherish since you were like, I want to do this.
Yes.
I think that to vocationally do it though, I remember being in COVID, being in the pandemic. I was still living in Tulsa at the time. And I kind of knew I wanted to move out of Tulsa. I felt like I had kind of done everything I wanted to do. I was ready for a new start. I loved my job up there. That's how I got started in the Broadway industry, was in Tulsa. But I just was ready to try something else. And I'd always thought about coming back home, but I didn't know. I wanted to really follow the Lord and be like, I just want to go wherever it is I need to be.
Yeah.
So I was applying so many places. I remember I applied to Elevation Church in Charlotte because I have really good friends that live out there.
Mm.
And I didn't, get an interview with them. But I remember I came back here. I made the decision to move back to Texas. And it was like that next week or something, one of my friends had texted me like, hey, there's a job opportunity opening up at my church that I'm on staff on. I think you'd be a really good fit for it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I think for me, it was like, it's in my field. It was a communications position. I was like, I want to try it. So we want to try something different. So let's do it. Let's
why not?
Let's see what happens. Got the job. So this was like March, I think, when I started. Yeah, I think it was March of 2021. And I, started in that position, and I really enjoyed it. I did enjoy the work. I think it was just one of those things though, that like, it did not take long for me to realize that, and at this time, the context is important. At this time, there were like the whisperings were happening of Broadway
Mm,
beginning to reopen. So if
okay.
Broadway's reopening, that means tours can go back out on the road, and come to Bass Performance Hall, to, whatever your local performing arts venue is that has National Broadway tours. That means they can have them again. And so I remember seeing on social media, like dates being announced of,
Mm,
all these different shows reopening on Broadway. And I just like felt that like tug in my spirit. I was like, oh man. And then I started to see like the like footage, like the curtain calls of the opening nights of those shows
mm,
reopening. And it was like something in me just said, like that is your ministry. That is the mission field.
where you wanted to be.
Yeah, it's where I wanted to be. I have such a heart for it. Like I love musical theater. I always have. But once I, got into the industry and started working in the field and meeting everybody that I was meeting, even in my organizations, I've always kind of, what I've told people is I've never felt like I was called or made to do something more than this. And that could change, the Lord could totally redirect me, but for now, for
Yeah.
as long as I can, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I think too, the other thing that I learned in working in ministry, and I remember telling Josh, our old youth pastor, this, I was like, it's really a calling. Like you have
Yeah.
to really love this, want to do this, because, yeah, like it sounds, and you can speak to this, it sounds
Mm,
great on paper, and it is, but it's like, it's hard work. It
yeah.
is early hours, late hours, extra hours. It is being in the trenches with people. It is giving
Right.
up yourself, your time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, and some of your weekends too, you're working on the
Yeah.
weekend, which I do that in my position. But like when you're called to it,
Yeah.
it doesn't really, it's truly a labor of love. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you understand, like it's for a purpose, and
Yeah.
you want to be there. You want to do that. You want to, give of yourself to that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's, yeah, like I think that I have learned that the Broadway industry and the entertainment field is my mission field. And
Mm,
it is, yeah, it's my vocation, but it's also where I'm continually sharpened because I am in a secular industry. And, there are actually a lot of Christians in the industry, but it still is, it's a constantly sharpening me, and
yeah.
professionally and just in my faith. So I think that, um, yeah, it's interesting because, I think for a while, no, I didn't ever feel shame about it, but I think, if you say you're going to be a pastor or, do something like that, people are usually, or at least in the faith, are like, oh my gosh, that's so
Mm,
great. And, when like, yeah, what I do, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's such a cool job. But they don't
right.
view it like that. And so I
Yeah.
think I had to kind of, it didn't take long, thankfully, but I had to really have the confidence in what I felt like God was calling me to do in
That's
that.
good. No, that could be really challenging. I could see that for people of not feeling like it's really something like how can you have faith in a position like that, or how do you honor the Lord? But it's like wherever you go. And that's what I like about the Great Commission, because when you break it down, it's not saying like go and make disciples, it's in your going. So like in
Mhm.
your day-to-day life, wherever that may be, we're all called to disciple, to show love, to be representatives of Jesus. So I think where you're at is such a cool opportunity to interact with all sorts of people of all sorts of different walks of life, you know? So I think that's like a really, really powerful distinction. Um, Another thing that you mentioned at Cherish Conference, so we're on this tour called Not a Cool Girl, and we've really been talking about the different labels that the world, even the church, places on us, or doesn't intentionally mean to, but somewhere along the ways we take them, and instead of running or hiding or overcompensating, we're having this mantra of, yeah, you're right, like I'm not those things, and it's okay because that's not what I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be just a daughter of Jesus, and to be confident in that. And one of the labels or feelings that you talked about was not being Christian enough for church spaces sometimes. So,
Mhm.
how do you navigate holding your faith while working in a field that's often seen as heavily secular? Kind of going off what we were just talking about.
Yeah. I I think that, yeah, there have been times where I've felt like I'm not Christian enough, because if you
Mm.
look at Christian culture, you know, at least in the American church, it's very, well, you should be forthcoming about your faith, and you should be, you should have in your Instagram bio follower of Jesus, and you should be
Yeah.
evangelizing to people every chance that you get. And um and I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I'm with everybody, I'm all about the approach, and I'm
Yeah.
all about the relationship, as we've said. And so I I liked how again, my friend Emily, I was talking to her about just some of this stuff, and she she has said, she was like, yeah, she was like, anytime I'm at an event and they like, are talking about evangelism and, street teams and all this stuff, she's like, that's great. She was like, there is a place for it.
Right.
You just don't want me to be the person doing the evangelizing. You want me
Yeah.
to be the person discipling.
Mm.
Because if everybody did the evangelizing,
Yeah.
there
That's
would be
good.
nobody left to do the discipling.
Just huge.
And I know, right? I was like, I'm writing that down.
Yeah. It's good.
She's probably going to see this, so shout out to Emily.
Shout out to Emily.
But when she said that, I was like, that's actually a really good point, because I
Yeah.
felt like, I was like, why am I feel bad that I am like wanting to push back against that, because I'm like, you can't be in people's face. And I think that, that has been hard, because some people would look at me and be like, well, what do you mean you can't be in people's face about your faith? Like, aren't you proud of your faith? And I'm like, no, I am. I have also, though, seen people who have been really burned by the church, whether it was people on street corners, preaching at them, or whether
Yeah.
it was people that they sat in the pew with that, the the minute that they knew, if they were involved in sin, or if they
Yeah.
were a part of the LGBTQ community, like
Right.
again, it's all relationship based, right? And so I think that there have been moments where I have felt like I wasn't Christian enough. And it was usually from Christian people.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to somebody one time, and it was just somebody I was getting to know. So we didn't even really know each other. We were in a group of people. And I was saying what I do, and he looks at me, and and this was somebody in the church, like, who was a Christian, that looked at me and they said, do you feel like you have to turn your faith off at work? And it was like, he said it just like that. And I just kind of looked at him, and I was like, no,
Odd
I really
question.
don't.
Yeah.
I really wanted to, if my father would have come out, probably my mom too, I would have been like, what do you mean? You want to unpack that a little bit for me?
Yeah.
But I didn't. And I just said, actually, no, I feel like, at my company, we're really respectful of each other.
Yeah.
It's we respect the relationship, the working relationship, and the friendship. I have friendships with a lot of my coworkers, with my bosses. I have amazing bosses. And, I think that it's been really interesting to have those conversations with people where they just assume, oh, well, because you're in the Broadway industry, you're probably around a lot of people that hate the church and anything to do with the church, and hate the South. And I'm like, no, not really.
Yeah.
It's a wide range of people. And so I think whenever that happens, I have to catch myself. I have to really check myself, because I almost can be more on the defense in faith circles.
Yeah.
In my vocation. And so that's something I'm continually having to work through. But when you haven't felt Christian enough, I think I said this at panel, whenever people, if you feel like you don't fit in a certain box, or, you don't fit the Christian mold, well, Jesus included, Jesus himself, and a lot of the people that, were used by God in the Bible didn't fit a mold. Like the mold that we have today in Western Christian culture, a lot of people in the Bible would not have fit that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have. And so I think that that's what I try to remember. And I think what I try to ask myself a lot and pray whether I'm going to work and I'm just in office that day, or I'm going to meet a cast member, like I try to, pray like, Lord, let me just be a reflection of you. May my heart be a reflection of you today. May I be your hands and feet today. May, if nothing else, people know that they're loved from being with me.
So. That's so good. So simple too. And I think about it of people are going to remember your actions more than your words. And so I think in building that relationship, it automatically draws people to you because you're not coming in and, critiquing their life or judging pieces. You're just learning, getting to know anyone just like you would any other person, Yeah. So I think the action portion is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, because I know, people would probably be like, well, it's not just love and it's not just relationship. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm in my Bible, and that's not to like toot my own horn. My quiet time, I haven't had my quiet time as much as I would have liked to this week. But I think, that it's kind of like Jesus knew God's word. He knew what was right in God's eyes. And so it's like you having that personal conviction of like, okay, am I practicing what I'm preaching?
Yeah.
Am I in my word? Am I journaling? Am I, spending time with the Lord?
Right.
But then am I also putting it into practice and meeting people where they are? And I'm very open about my faith. And I've talked to my coworkers about it, just in conversation, because it's a part of who I am. I've talked to colleagues that work in New York City. And I've, or even if it's just like, I had a colleague who, I think it was Christmas of last year, she lost her mom, and she's in her 20s. Like it was really, really sad. And I just reached out to her and, was offering her encouragement and letting her know, like, I knew, what she was going through, and said I would be praying for her. And like, people are very receptive, I think, because again, you built that relationship.
Yep.
And they also know that you're serious about it. Like, it's not just like, well, I'm going to thoughts and prayers. I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I asked her for a scripture. She'd give me one. So
that's good. And I think when you build that relationship, then like you can get to truth of things, because and it's not you having to go and tell them. They'll ask, or they're putting themselves in a position because there's this layer of trust and safety and comfortability, and so I think that's powerful. Our last question for you to end this podcast is for someone who's walking through a big life transition or feeling stuck right now. What would you tell them about trusting God with open doors and with closed ones?
It's funny because I feel like I'm not walking through this right now, but I think, as you reach forks in the road, you pray through decisions, whether it's changing churches or moving states. Like, I think that we are always kind of thinking about the next thing, at least in this phase of our lives. But one thing my roommate told me that I love is that her dad told her is, follow the peace and follow the peace of the Lord. I think, if it's really meant to be, and if it is, if God calls you to be somewhere, he will open that door.
Yeah.
It will take effort on your part. Right. You have to take a step, but
that's good.
He will open the door, and it will happen quickly. And that's something I have to remind myself of, even in being single.
Yeah.
It takes effort, but once that door is open, it'll fling open.
Yeah.
And if a door is supposed to be closed, it's going to close.
Yeah.
And everything just kind of falls into place the way that it's supposed to. And so it's like pursuing the Lord, trusting, walking with him.
Absolutely.
In 2020, I spent a lot of time, like, just trying to figure that out, going through that very thing. And it was so interesting because I remember when I got into the Broadway industry in 2017, it was the same thing like that. It was like everything just fell into place. it took me taking a step and putting myself out there. But then once I did, it all just fell into place. My start date was the day my mom went into heaven.
Wow.
And that kind of let me know, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow.
When I moved back here and, Broadway was starting to reopen, and it took a step of faith it already took a step of faith for me to move back to Texas.
Right.
And then it took another step of faith for me to, put myself out there with the company that I'm with now. And, which like, that's another story for another time, but it took a step of faith for me. And once that happened, it was like, again, the doors just flung open, everything fell into place. And I've been there now for almost 4 years. So
Amazing.
I've seen it in my own life. Like I have seen it twice in my career, where God, he will open the door. And if he opens it, no man can shut it. And I have to remind myself that whenever I have imposter syndrome moments, like, when I feel like I'm not doing enough, like I have to remind myself of that. Like, he created this position for me. He opened the door for me to be here.
It's good.
I interviewed with the company I'm with in 2018, and I didn't feel like the timing was right. And I was so scared because I was like, I would be moving back home, and it's like, such a beautiful venue, and it would be amazing. But I just knew the timing wasn't right. And, it's just so interesting because it's like, obviously, all these years later, I'm working with that company. And I'm in a position that's even better than the one that I originally applied for, better fit for me.
Right.
And the person that got that position is in my department and is like a perfect fit for what he's doing. So it's just like,
That makes sense.
It all works out the way that it's supposed to. And I know it's hard when you're in the trenches of it and you're like, but how's it going to work? How? And I have to remind myself, like, it just does. And he's never let you fall up until this point. Like, there are some things that we all go through. Clearly we just talked about it. There's some things that I've been through.
Right.
But, even whenever I was like living on my own and I was like, rent keeps going up. How am I going to keep paying my rent? Like, how am I going to keep and all these things? And it was like, I remember, having those moments with the Lord where it was like, he said, I've never not provided for you.
Yeah.
I've never not taken care of you. You've always had exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
And I always think of, like the scripture out of Matthew where it says, if he dresses the lilies, if he feeds the sparrows, like he's going to take care of you too.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I think again, it's just reminding yourself, follow the peace. If you're thinking through a big decision, if you're trying to figure out what's next, ask the Lord what the next right thing is, and ask him for peace and discernment and to trust the Holy Spirit that's inside of you.
It's good.
Yeah.
Erica, it has been such a blessing to have you on the podcast. So many good pieces of wisdom. I know that there are so many girls listening in on this that can relate to so many different aspects. And for those that are listening, I encourage you, share this with someone in your life where you're like, man, maybe it's someone that's grieving or walking through a hard disappointment. Maybe it's someone navigating transition or just the importance of community. So many incredible topics were covered in this episode. So if you like this podcast, make sure that you are liked and subscribed to Spotify or Apple. Remember, you can also watch now on YouTube, so make sure you're liking and subscribed over there. And as always, girls, we will see you again soon.